eyes and cross my... Hi, this is Duffy McMahon. I'm in for Melinda Vail tonight because Melinda is at a event tonight with the Community Network and Charities. She's actually there because of their topic is human trafficking, and you know how Melinda is when it comes to anything that has to do with women and sexuality. So Pat and I, and this is Pat McMahon, this is my husband.
Well, you didn't introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Duffy McMahon. I knew who I was. So, and Pat is here with us tonight because we're going to be talking about what's going on in the way of human sexuality with all of the aspects of the Me Too movement and the stopping now, stops here. But before we go, I want to talk about a couple of things coming up, and that is, look familiar, guys? This is going to be the videotape of the event with James Bond Prague. It's going to be coming out. We'll let you know how much and when that you can order them. Call the office at any time.
Is this the one that I was...
This is the one that you emceed,
oh,
yes, uh-huh.
Well, wait just a second. Do I get billing?
No,
Nothing.
Nothing. And of course, you always got Melinda's book, Diary of a Mad Psychic, Medium. There you go. And that is available at the office, online, on Amazon, on every place. So, we're going to actually be talking about everything that's been going on really since about 4 or 5 months ago when I first came out against Harvey Weinstein and the sexual harassment movement.
Or it's been going on since the beginning of Men and Women.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even sure if it's been the beginning of Men and Women. I think it's been going on since the beginning of agricultural, whenever we became an ownership society as opposed to a diverse society that needed the continuity of both male and female to make everything work. So even if you look at hunter and gatherer societies today or indigenous people today, their rules and regulation about sex and how you act is very, very different. Look back at what Margaret Mead used to write in the late 60s and 70s about indigenous cultures and their differences and beliefs. And so we had the Golden Globes the other night, and in watching the Golden Globes, everything was about sexual harassment and what has been going on. But to me, and I'm going to ask you what you think in a second, really well.
I've been sitting here fascinated.
Okay, I want to ask, where we seem to be lumping abuse, harassment, and assault all under one little umbrella of harassment, and that is kind of bothering me somewhat because it's more than just sexual harassment, because sexual harassment is kind of the mild aspect of abuse and assault. And so whenever you talk about it stops here or the Me Too, we have to actually kind of learn what to look at it. And so when you think of sexual harassment, what do you think of?
Usually the jerk in the office who is doing sly comments about a woman's wardrobe or about her weekend or what her weekend might have been. The guy that is annoying, particularly to women because of the...
but more benign.
Well, yeah, unless you have to be at the desk next to him.
Yeah.
It certainly can't be compared to assault or abuse. It's abusive, but those guys, I must tell you, in every radio and television station that I've ever been in, and every office that I've had an association with, there's usually at least one guy. And it's not always the boss.
No,
Usually one guy who just thinks he's being funny, that he's being clever, and that he's sadly being desirable.
Or so he thinks.
Yeah.
By the way, our phone number here is 602-875-0444. Would love to get your views on this, so call up if you have a question or a statement in regarding to this.
Especially, I would love to hear from women and men who feel that somehow the movement has gone too far. I want to I would
Because I
love
hear
to
that.
hear opinions on every facet of this,
The
but
only people I hear that the movement has gone too far from is men.
yes, yeah.
And I think
Yeah, why I can't even compliment my secretary
On how she looks.
on how attractive she looks today. I can't do this, I can't do that.
I have a question for you right now, and
For me or for them?
well, for everybody. Let me ask you, what if you took the sexual aspect out of that? What if it was just harassment, abuse, and assault? And we left the sexuality out of it. Would that change how you view things?
How do you do that?
Well, because it's still assault, abuse, or harassment, whether it's sexual, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional.
It seems to me like they're all a kind of a part of the same mushroom. Because if somebody is harassing you because they don't like you or they want you to lose your job, and it has nothing to do with some satisfaction that, for lack of a better term, the guy gets out of telling suggestive jokes
Right.
or using language that's not family-oriented language, right?
Yeah, I ask that mainly because of does sexuality, and I'm a doctor of human sexuality, does the aspect of it being sexual change the importance of it?
Sexual as opposed to what?
As opposed to physical. So, because all of it is abuse is physical or mental.
But it can
Assault
also be
is,
sexual
yeah.
too.
Well, but see, sexual doesn't change whether it's physical or mental. It just means it's within a certain area of the body. If somebody beats you up, it's still assault. If they kicked you in the groin, does that make that sexual?
No, I guess probably you're talking about the motivation
I'm talking about
behind
motivation.
some action.
Yeah, because see, all of it, we basically have put it under this umbrella of sexual abuse, sexual assault, sexual harassment. And yes, because you're doing it using sex in order to, to debase, to cheapen, to humiliate the other person. But all of those without the term sexual in front of it still does the same thing. And it has nothing to do with sex, none of it. It has to do with power.
Well, I was going to say that among the other reasons that commonly, for lack of a better term, men do any of those things to women is because of control,
Exactly.
not because of desire as much as control.
Well, again, it's all power, but see, all of that isn't just women. There are men that are sexually harassed and sexually abused and sexually assaulted.
Sure.
Okay, so it goes to both gender. We are only focusing on women because that is the majority of sexual harassment, abuse.
The overwhelming majority.
The overwhelming majority, yes. But I'm just saying,
Melinda
if
Vail.
if the word sexual was taken off of it,
Are you on your computer?
because our society tends to view anything sexual as something
Yes.
totally apart and
Vail.
away from what sexuality actually is, away from what sex actually is, away from what the aspects of who we are as sexual humans are. And we use that to humiliate or to devalue that other person. But we still devalue another person or humiliate them if we bully them.
All right.
If
So
we-
if we take
Melinda Vail.
if we take the word sex or sexuality or sexual out of the phrase sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual abuse, and you have just harassment and assault and abuse, no, it becomes a totally different thing altogether. It could be somebody coming into a jewelry store and assaulting and abusing the salesperson.
Exactly. So, this is all abuse, one way or the other. Do you think that putting sexual in front of it somehow increases the attitude of
You see two-
the offense.
Are you on
I
the-
just think that it redefines it.
Okay.
If someone is accused of assault,
Mhm.
that usually means with or without some kind of a weapon,
Mhm.
I have physically attacked you, okay?
Mhm.
Has nothing to do with sexuality. It has to do with, I don't like your face,
Mhm.
or I want something from you, but it doesn't say that that something has anything to do with sex. If you add the sexual component, it becomes a different offense altogether.
Okay, because even assault, I mean, I'm not saying take it away or anything, I'm just trying to get an idea, because to me, all assault, all abuse, all harassment is equally as dangerous and equally as bad, and because it's all equally somebody trying to, again, hurt you, harm you, make you a non-person, and it's all a power play, most every time. Whether you're being bullied on the school ground, or whether you're, somebody, doesn't like you in the workplace and tries to get you fired. It's all within the same, community of offenses.
As you may be able to tell, Duffy and I didn't really go through an enormous amount of rehearsal in advance of this appearance, because we really did want it to be spontaneous and find out not only what each other of us had to say about the subject, but also you. And I'm really interested in what folks have to say about this subject, because I contend that it has been around long before the agrarian society, long before hunters and gatherers. I still believe that there was a guy with a club that dragged a lady into his cave, and
Yeah.
and that was some kind of assault.
I knew Maury, he was not that bad of a guy.
No, Maury the caveman?
No, yeah, Maury the My other question to you is that we have the wonderful movements, we have the Me Too, and it's time,
Yes.
the time has come. We have wonderful, wonderful nonprofit organizations that are there to help people that have been abused, that have been harassed, that have been sexually assaulted. Everything is based off of a reactionary aspect. What are we doing that is proactive? What are we doing to stop this from being a part of everyday society? Because it has been, whether it be in politics, whether it be in corporations, whether it be in schools, education, or Hollywood. There isn't any aspect of life or work that this is not a part of.
But what kind of proactive efforts are you talking about?
Well, first of all, bullying and any of this is a learned behavior. I don't think most people really start out by thinking that they're going to be, crass, or they're going to be power people, but it is learned. We learn it from the people around us. We learned it by watching our parents and how they treat each other. We learn it by going to school and having kids, bully us or tease us or do whatever, and which is part of the learning process and developmental process. But it seems today that that process has changed dramatically. We don't teach simple politeness. We don't teach courtesy. We don't teach respect.
Well, some schools do, but most of the time they're private schools with small classes, and they can afford the luxury of doing that. Right now, most teachers that I talk to say they are so completely overwhelmed with just the obligations of the day that they don't have time during the school day ever, no matter how small or large the classes are. They just don't have time to teach everything. But I agree that those kinds of things have to be taught somewhere. Of course, I think logically, most people would say it has to start in the home.
You would hope so. But I don't know how many young parents that I see that let the kids rule the roost. I mean, that the child comes before anything. and within the house, that they don't make a decision without the child making the decision, or having it have its own, having the child have its own way. A lot of the way we rear children has changed from the way you and I grew up a lot.
When did that start?
I don't know. I started seeing it probably in the 70s, in the 80s for sure. I remember we watched Home Alone, and we talked about the television
Excuse me.
programming.
This. Home
Yeah.
Alone, right,
Yeah.
the movie.
The movie. And we were watching a lot of the comedies that were coming on. And I told you I was worried about what we were doing in Hollywood by showing that every kid had all the answers and every adult was an idiot. And I think that's when I saw more of it starting, is the fact that we didn't teach respect for our elders even on television. You know, most husbands and most fathers were considered idiots.
Yeah, it was the Dagwood syndrome.
Yeah.
And Mom was always Einsteinian in her brilliance, and he was a goofy clown
Yeah.
that used to forget everything from the grocery store.
But still, you had teenage kids that had all the answers. They knew how to come up with things. And, you know, like I said, developmental psychology, your brain is not fully developed until you're 25 to 26 years old, so that their reasoning is not really that good. So I saw a lot of things happening. Then you got into more of the music thing with rap, with a lot of the songs that were just absolutely violent. And I find it ironic that the Me Too movement, and a lot of it has started in Hollywood, which is great. But Hollywood is also to blame for a lot of what our modeling is, to me. Everything is misogynistic when it comes to what that they show, the way that they end up glorifying only a woman's body, not so much a man's. You see more nudity. I have no problem with nudity. I think it's great. But they show women being assaulted a lot more, even within the sexual aspects of movies. They do not show you sexuality in the term of being loving. It's always fairly violent.
Yeah, and a gentle, romantic love scene is hard to come by. But when it comes to pop music, I'm particularly sensitive about that because, as you know, my early broadcast career was in music. And while it was the music of the 60s, even that in itself was also highly provocative, at least to some people, highly controversial, either politically or the way they approached social life. But rap music, and please don't start cornering me with, well, yeah, but what do you know about rap music? You're 127 years old and you probably have no idea how to even acquire music anymore. It probably is not
spell rap.
not purchased at a record store. No, but the lyrics, not uncommonly, you know, I mean, it is not one of those things that is the exception to the rule, that an awful lot of rap artists, hip-hop artists in the same general field, white and black, seem to really push the edge of acceptability when it comes to their attitude toward women in general.
Oh, yeah, no, pretty
Not
much.
not only on the record, but also the music videos.
Very much so. And again, women end up being second-class citizens, and we are, throughout history, if you want to go back to pre-agricultural, yeah, we have been considered a second class, or not as strong, not as powerful, not as smart, not as, you know, so many things than men, and were confined and made to believe that. you know, it takes, no matter how you look at it, it takes two people to make a family, even with cloning. But, or, you know, in vitro, it still takes a male and a female to make a baby. And so to say that one is more important than the other, to me, is idiotic in just the sense of, if we believe in a higher spirit, if we believe in a God, that he would not make it so that there are two people, that one was really great, the other one, eh.
Well,
So-
but, all right. Since I'm sharing this, and I believe that this is a guest appearance without a fee, so I get to say anything that I please.
Well, you always do.
Oh, in this case, we're talking also about that fundamental superiority of man that began with strength. We are, with some exceptions, we are
Many men that I know.
bigger and stronger and more powerful. And we then have our own way because we are. It has been that way, and I really believe that's the basis of it all. It is, E.T. The basis of the entire thing from the beginning of the superiority of man. It certainly isn't because medical research has determined in later years that men are superior physically. No, you live longer than we do.
We can stand more pain than most men.
So
We
many
can- so many aspects.
advantages that you have that we don't have. The only advantage we have is upper body strength and the physical advantages that go with that. But from that, it's been translated over the millennia into
Eons.
the superiority of man. And how has it evolved? Well, finally, we've come to the time when today, just today, in all of your news sources, you'll find that Mark Wahlberg was paid 1,000 times, not $1,000, 1,000 times more than Michelle Phillips was for his role in the movie about the John Paul Getty family. And that was not for the entire film, but just for the retake that they had to go back and do with Christopher Plummer. So they had to go back, reshoot a number of scenes in Europe. Michelle Phillips got $80 a day per diem because she, like everybody else in the cast, to the best of our knowledge, said, "We're not going to charge you for this. How fabulous that you've decided to redo this role that was done by Kevin Spacey." They said, "Spacey, you're out. Those film footages are destroyed." Christopher Plummer came in, did those scenes, and not Christopher Plummer because he was brand new to the cast. He got paid. But everybody said, "We're doing this one for free, just pay our expenses." Apparently, except for Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, and that was up to apparently Mark Wahlberg, the
And
producer.
the producers,
Yeah.
right.
But that was also brought up during the Golden Globes because they were talked about the amount of pay that men got as opposed to women, which has been in the workplace. We had from the time I was a little girl, and we talked about equal pay for equal work.
They're still talking.
They're still talking about it. We talk about it a lot. And I think I get tired of talking about it. I really would like to see some results. And that's why I say, how can we get past the reactionary and into the proactive of anything?
But aren't we doing that now? See, the thing is, I don't think this movement is a temporary thing, like, should we let girls into the Boy Scouts? That's going to be discussed by some families, and it'll be resolved. I think this is the beginning of something really important, really serious, and if guys are a little bit better behaved in the office, or on the set, or in the studio, terrific.
In the office or where. No,
Terrific.
and I agree with that, but it has to be more than just, it has to be taught somewhere, and if we don't teach our young people how to, social graces, if that's what you wanna call it, because they're on the internet constantly.
Would you please hurry?
You're not learning on the internet, because on the internet you can say whatever you want, and you don't even have to own your own words.
Boy, am I glad that you made that point, because you talk about a lack of propriety, a lack of social graces. All you have to do to communicate the fact that you disagree with somebody's point is to just say, I disagree with what you said because, right? And instead,
Oh,
you get the vile name calling and
don't
it's
dare say you didn't like something Trump said, because you're gonna be lambasted. Whether what you said was correct, I can disagree with anybody. All I do is disagree.
But if you
So-
agree
Uh-huh.
with President Trump,
Uh-huh.
or virtually any
Anybody,
politician from the other side,
Yeah.
you get all kinds of. By the
Again.
way, did anybody happen to mention the phone number? Because I know
602-875-0444.
And you have Lori. I'm gonna transfer Lori.
Okay,
right now.
we have Lori on the phone.
is it Lori?
Lori.
Oh, hi, Lori.
Oh, she's not here yet, honey. Ready?
Okay. You'll notice the technical part of this is being done
Lori?
by
Yeah,
the woman of the family.
right.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Lori, this is
Hi.
Duffy and Pat. Or Pat and
Hi.
Duffy. Hi.
Hi. I've been wanting to call in for so long.
What can we help you with?
Well, I just, I'm not sure how much you can do over the phone. I'm getting married
Mm-hmm.
in 8 weeks, and I think
Congratulations.
it's the right life decision. I think it's a, thank you. My husband did pass away about 4 years ago, and I just want to know what, if anything, you can tell me about this.
In what regard to getting married?
In regards to life, I don't know,
Okay, yeah.
can you channel spirit or?
No, Melinda normally channels the spirit. I basically do past life regression hypnosis, and Melinda's not here tonight. What I could ask you is a couple of questions about the gentleman you're marrying, and if you can tell me anything about him.
I can certainly try.
Okay. Yeah, we were doing the show tonight because Melinda is not here tonight because she's at an event for regard to human trafficking, so she's not here, or she'd be glad to be able to tell you a little bit more.
Lori, were you expecting a reading?
I was hoping, yeah.
Well, the only thing that we can do tonight with this subject that we're covering is to find out from you. This is Pat. I'm the male version of the Pat and Duffy couple that's been married.
I know who you are. I've
Well,
listened to you on KTAR for years.
Thank you. Well, we've been married for 33 years, together for 106, and I can't say that we are experts in any facet of marriage, but what I would be interested in relative to the subject we're talking about tonight, and that is the Me Too movement, the movement of women gaining and garnering more strength and saying, wait just a moment, I'm going to be able to take care of myself without having to worry about the way I'm treated in the office or just simply on any kind of a public thoroughfare. Is your husband someone who respects you as a woman?
Oh, absolutely.
And my other question, because this is what I ask people, since I'm a doctor of human sexuality, are you able to communicate truthfully? And I say truthfully because we tend to not want to hurt anybody else's feelings, and in not doing so, we don't really speak what we feel.
No, we absolutely have a wonderful relationship. It's the second marriage for both of us. He was in an 18-year marriage with 3 children. I was in a 13-year marriage with 3 children.
Wow.
So this time around, it's been a long, slow, beautiful process of healing and learning and growing and exploring. And he's the most genuine, intelligent, respectful person that I've ever met.
How old are the
He's
kids?
incredible. So
How old are the kids,
his
Lori?
are mine.
Both.
Both.
His kids are 24, 21, and 17. My kids are 12, 5, and 5.
Let's talk about your kids then. Duffy, would you review with Lori a little bit about what we were talking about concerning teaching respect for the other gender?
Yeah. Well,
Early
I should
on.
ask you, the kids, what gender are they?
So my eldest is female, and then my littles are 1 boy and 1 girl. And my oldest, obviously, she remembers her father, but the littles,
One's
no.
done. Yeah.
My
Now,
husband passed away when they were
you
just a couple
you have a female and you have is the 1 girl and 1 boy close to the same age?
Yes,
Okay. Did you say they're both 5?
yes.
They're twins?
No, they're 16 days apart.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. I won't ask about that. That's okay. Anyhow, what I ask is, again, in growing up and so forth, having had a brother myself, which was not always the most fun for me, but or for him either. But in being raised, do you tell your daughter as much as your son about the fact that she can accomplish whatever she wants?
Oh, I absolutely do.
Yeah. And does your son show respect for both you and his sisters?
Yes.
Okay?
We've consciously made the decision to raise the children that way. It's very, very different, I think, because we've both been through horribly hard relationships in the past, and so we're very, very cognizant of how, the type of parenting we want to engage in and how we want to have our kids perceive us. And so it's very different this time. We're very old for parents. We're old.
No, you're never old. You just feel like it occasionally. But anyhow, so what I would just really say to you is good luck on the marriage, and you seem to have things worked out to the best of your ability, and just know that things are going to change on a daily basis, and just realize if you keep a communication going in regard to those changes, that you're going to be able to keep on being okay. And we're going to keep on talking again about the Me Too movement and what goes on, because we're talking about having a voice, and we all need to have a voice. And so does your young son need to have a voice to be able to say he likes this or doesn't like that. But your daughter needs to be able to have a voice even more so to say, get away, I don't like this is wrong, and take responsibility for herself. Too many young girls still feel like they have to submit to a male's wishes. That whether it is their father, their brother, their uncle, their grandfather, a teacher, their boss, that they are still somehow subjugated to that male personality. And we have to learn to say, no, we're not.
Hey, thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori, for calling.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
I really wanted to jump on that springboard about the experience that a lot of educators have had in gender isolated classes. All boys schools that I went to, all girls classes, or mixed classes. And so often I have read that in mixed classes, many, if not all, of the girls tended to wait for the boys to answer the questions. Wait their turn for the boy. And I can't believe, because my family was about as balanced as you could get. I can't believe that a female would hesitate to respond in class until a male started
Well,
the
not only that,
conversation.
if they were smart in a particular subject, especially math or science, they would try to dumb themselves down so they didn't appear like they were smarter than the boys.
They've been discouraged.
They've been discouraged. Oh, I know it's changed a lot, but even whenever I was growing up, you always get the teacher says, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Well, the first thing I ever said was a doctor. She goes, "Oh, no, a nurse, honey." No, a doctor. So.
Don't you think, though, that's changed now?
I hope so. I don't know. I think in some areas it has, in some areas it hasn't. We still have some very traditional, old-fashioned, antediluvian, aspects of life in the United States. Some areas are progressive, other areas aren't.
And you blame that, in great measure, on religion.
On religion and education, both. I'm one that believes that we need to have sex education. If you have sex education, you understand the body and you understand what sex is, you're not going to use it as a tool against somebody. In the areas where they do teach about sex and they do have openness about sex and sexuality, they don't have the sex crimes. They don't have the rapes. They don't have a lot of the problems that we do here. To me, whenever you put anything into a taboo, which sex has become, or is in the United States, it's like prohibition. More people started drinking because of prohibition because they couldn't have it.
Yeah, there were also, by the way, in those classrooms where there was regular sex education for everybody across the board, also fewer teenage pregnancies.
Yeah, a lot less teenage pregnancies.
Because they knew what was going on.
Yes, and we think, okay, well, they're going to learn it at home, or they're not going to learn. They're going to learn it at church. They're going to learn it in school. No, they're really not, because first of all, they don't teach you about the body any place, in school or at home or about, especially in church. They don't teach you what the body is like. They don't teach you the natural course of development. All of these different things that would help a person understand what it is to be a sexual human being, which is what we are.
And a lot of times, mom and dad aren't teaching their kids sorry, this is the disclaimer coming up, because mom and dad don't know what the hell they're talking about. Just because they do it in the bedroom, in the sanctity of the bedroom of the home, doesn't mean that they know anything about the world of human sexuality.
No, and what we do, a lot of the problems we have, especially one of the things that causes a problem with people that do actually rape or assault or do other things to women, is because most of them were raised with shame, raised with, as sex was a sin, guilt, that anything in regard to sex was either dirty or evil or sinning or shaming or whatever it happens to be, and that was what we did to our kids growing up, so they didn't know anything in regards to sex and sexuality. So they use that in a way to, again, to humiliate or to value a person. How do you, if you want to really hurt somebody, don't like them, what are you going to do? You're going to do the thing that is going to be the most humiliating to them. And we've made sex an aspect of a humiliation.
We've talked all this time about so many facets of this, and it all began with, well, at least this week's conversation began with the Golden Globes. And it didn't just begin with Harvey Weinstein either, who had his face slapped in a Scottsdale restaurant, by the way, the last couple of days, by a guy. But could we, before we run out of time, give some productive, specific steps that I've heard you say to women who don't know what to do or how to react if in the office somebody doesn't start coming on to them or even asking them for a date, but just acts badly, inappropriately.
You know, this is what, one of the things I talk to women about is really taking responsibility for their own actions, their own feelings, everything else. If somebody is being a basic jerk around you, here's the thing, you can tell them, you're being a basic jerk, cut it out. If somebody says something that is insulting to you, let them know. You don't have to be quiet about things. We keep on thinking that we have to be silent. No, we don't have to be silent. We can speak up and say, this really upsets me, I don't like it, you do it again, I'm going to HR. That's here. In other places, you do the same thing. You walk away. You don't need to take it. You don't need to have somebody get into your face and be offensive to you. So what I try to tell women is that really just get your voice. Be able to speak out and to speak your own truth.
Now, what happens, though, if that woman in that given office says, look, I don't want to be considered a prude. I don't want to be considered a jerk. I'm really not that limited in my appreciation of funny jokes, but some of it is just simply crude, some of it is vulgar, but if I say something, I'm going to be considered Sister Mary holier than thou in the office.
So what? If you don't, really, if you're going to worry about what somebody else is thinking, you've already lost. If you're going to be worried about that if you say something they may think negatively of you, you've already lost. You can't control what they think. You've got to speak your own truth. You've got to speak your own wants, desires, and needs. If they want to turn around and say, oh, what's the matter with you? Just say, hey, you're not funny.
I wonder if anybody in the audience right now, and there are millions of you around the planet, I wonder if any of you right now could respond to this. You, female, woman, girl, have you ever been put in a position in the office or in any situation at all in which you had to face a guy who was acting inappropriately and you kept your mouth shut? Or maybe you didn't. How did you handle it? Did you get in trouble with the boss? Were you then reported to HR? I really would like to know, because we always talk about those folks who have had these experiences. What's the number? What's the phone number?
602-875-0444.
What was that again?
602-875-0444. Did that very well, didn't I?
Will there be a prize?
Yes, there will be. You know, you ask about that. One of our closest friends was a manager for, or I should say, a general manager for a clothing line, a clothing store. And she had been sexually harassed at a place where she was working. And she went to her boss. She went to HR. And this is back in the 70s, but they basically said, well, you should probably get a different job then. So I know a number of these women that have gone through that. I know a number of, have I gone through it personally? No, because I've got pretty much a big mouth. And Crash will tell you, is that, yeah. But anyhow, I can probably give it back just as easily. I don't have a problem telling somebody that they're full of it or that I don't think that they're funny or whatever.
But
so
you are the exception to the
I'm
rule.
the
You're an
exception.
assertive person who does so with...
I'm a Marine brat. You know, not that that means anything, but...
And you seem to have, I think, for most people, you seem to have an extraordinary amount of confidence. Some of that is fake.
A lot of it is, as a matter of fact, and the whole thing is fake it till you make it. I never let anybody see me not being able to take care of a situation. One, because I always think I can, whether I can or can't. And a lot of it, again, for women, we're raised to be codependent. We're raised to think that everybody else comes first. No, you need to come first. You know, I use the analogy of for women and codependency is think about the fact that you are on a plane and there's a problem and the oxygen mask comes on. Put it on yourself first, because if not, your kids or anybody else that you're trying to help out aren't going to be able to be around because you're going to be dead. So if you don't take care of yourself first, and that's for every woman out there, you're not going to be able to help anybody else. So you learn to be able to realize that you are an important part of your family. You are an important part of society. You are really the matriarchal or the feminine energy is what really balances us.
Now you have a PhD, and your specialty is human sexuality. In order to talk about human sexuality, not exclusively, but for the most part, that's men and women.
Right.
All right? Why don't you talk to a guy right now about what happens in the office when he's accused fallaciously? What if somebody that has a grudge on against him, somebody that wants his job, or for whatever reason, goes to HR with absolutely no motivation at all, just goes to HR to get the guy in trouble, to get the guy out. What does he do?
The guy that has
The guy that's innocent, the guy that just simply is finding out from management that he's been accused of something, because we hear a lot about guys who are afraid that's going to happen.
And it can. That's the big problem. It can. You can't stop that. You can't stop women from being mean to each other. Women are our own worst enemies most of the time. We were talking about, I'm going to change the subject really quickly, which is what I do. But we talk about the Me Too movement, and we talked about what happened at Golden Globes. And Rose McGowan came out the next day and basically bombed on everybody about the fact that, you know, where were they whenever she was going through her problems? They didn't know about her problems. It doesn't matter. The situation and the subject matter isn't about her. It's about sexual harassment, assault, and abuse.
But she's feeling pushed aside.
Well, she may be feeling pushed aside, but she needs to take a look at what's going on, and thanks to her, and recognize that, yeah, she got her voice out there. Let other people recognize that they've got a voice. But don't start bombing on women because they say, yes, let's keep on this going. You know, support them, saying, you know, I wish that they'd been here for me, but, you know, I'm glad that they're doing this now, instead of, you know, being negative about it.
Wait a minute, you said you want women to have a voice, but it's a man's voice that I hear. Wait a minute. I'm getting a man's voice saying, I'm waiting to find out what I should do if I'm in the office and a woman lies about me.
Tell them. Just say, hey, she's lying about me, because they are, if it's HR, they are obligated to find out the truth. And this has happened in the past. And in fact, the same woman that was told to get a new job, we were talking about this whole aspect of what happens to other people. She said that happened to one of her employees. He was called to HR, and it took them almost a month and a half, 6 weeks of investigation to find out that the woman was actually lying about the whole thing. He was exonerated, whatever, and then the woman was fired. But yeah, you're not going to be able to stop false accusations.
But you just hope that HR or your management is going to follow up on this thing, because most of the time
they're supposed to.
They can tell about time, locations, those kinds of
Right.
situations.
Right. And so, but that's their job to do this. So there's a lot of different things that they need to do. HR doesn't really want to have to do that, but it's part of their job. You know, nobody wants to have to go ahead and accuse somebody or do research and investigations onto somebody's sexual harassment.
Do you think, now, this is the first time I will have asked you this, and this vast audience is going to be let in on a historic moment in male-female relationships.
We're in trouble.
Do you believe that, for lack of a better term, the Weinstein movement, all kinds of things have taken place over centuries and decades and decades and decades in show business, but the Weinstein movement, do you think it will dramatically change relationships between men and women in the business environment.
I'm hoping so.
No,
Whether
but do you think?
do I think is so early in its infancy that I really can't give you a good opinion, because, like I said, right now it's in its infancy. It's just getting started. It's had this, astronomical growth, and we'll see what happens.
The flame is certainly there. There's no question about the fact that there's something burning somewhere, and it happens to be that which women have needed for who knows how long, and that is the sense that they really do have the power to do something about it if people misbehave around them, and they don't have to be silent anymore.
No, we don't have to be silent, but the problem is you're looking at, a myriad of personalities. You're going to have people that will get upset and think that anything beyond a hello is a sexual harassment. So that's one of the major problems that we have. Coming up and saying, "Hey, you look cute today," that's sexual harassment. I don't buy that. To me, you still have an aspect of general male-female interaction that's going to be there. And if you're working with somebody, you need to learn how to get along and being able to say what you feel and what's going on. Say you don't like something or you do like something is important. But I see too many people with that whiplash reaction. And it's the guy saying, "Well, I don't even know how to ask a girl out. If I say, 'Would you like to go out?' That's sexual harassment." Well, you know something, again, right now, infancy, overreaction stage, which is in every type of movement. There's a infancy and there's a immediate overreaction on both sides. Now, the people that have been harassed for years and years and years, and a lot of this stuff goes back to the 1980s. We're looking at things from 30 years ago. Well, 30 years ago didn't make it right. It was a totally different society.
You mean the accusations that are
Yeah,
being
the
made?
accusations,
But minorities have also been a part of this for so long, and that is people who said, "Well, wait a minute, you mean I can't tell an African American joke? I can't tell a Hispanic joke. I can't tell a Polish joke. Why, back when I was a kid, we used to think that was funny." Well, yeah, but did the black person or the Hispanic person or the Polish person think that it was funny? And there's always been that extreme concern, right?
Well, that's how we kind of got into a political correctness that is now imploding, thanks to a lot of things going on in the media and a lot of tweeting that goes on. We've got to get back to common courtesies.
You mean that which would result in what happened? We don't have Polish jokes told that commonly anymore. It used to be a pop thing to do.
Yeah, but we have psychologist jokes, doctor jokes,
Oh, well, those are
blonde
okay.
jokes.
Blonde psychologist jokes.
Yeah, it's
Now
even
that's
worse.
funny.
But we go back to, again, let's start respecting people. Let's
Yes.
start respecting
Great.
other cultures. Let's start other religions, other aspects of differences. The jokes came around because they were different. This was a different group. They came around because all the Polish lived over in this area, all the
Yeah.
Italians over in this area, all the
Good
Chinese
point.
over here.
And
So-
why did they have to be demeaning? I was just talking to somebody today at the television studio about the fact that on the Ed Sullivan Show, many of them black and white, yes, many years ago, a variety show with music artists, dancers, comedians, and some of them were ethnic comedians.
Yeah.
Myron Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
Myron Cohen used to tell these wonderful Jewish stories that were funny about the furrier, the stereotype, the jeweler, stereotype. And I think because Myron Cohen was telling them, he could tell them now. But not if your name is Patrick Kelly.
Right.
Then it's not as fun.
But we talk about what is demeaning and why do you demean somebody? Again, demeaning supposedly gives you a sense of power over somebody else. Control, again. I don't talk politics, but in this case I will talk about what's going on and what we are seeing and all of the tweeting that goes from the White House. What that does, again, when you start to demean anybody, and I don't care who it is, I don't care if it's the president, I don't care if it's a third grader, you know, in a school. If you start demeaning anybody and calling names, it's because your own insecurity, basically. And all it really does is shows your lack of intelligence and shows your lack of human kindness and humanness. And I think it really kind of takes away a part of your soul.
Okay, but does that include also the media people? And I'm talking about now the broadest range of media, print, electronic, social media. Does that include those people who call the president names and who demean him insultingly?
Yeah.
I don't mean
seriously.
about specific issues with which they disagree.
No.
I'm talking about the cheap shots.
Cheap shots, any type, insulting, you don't need to insult people.
Anybody.
There's no really reason to. You know, the old saying, sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. Wrong. Words hurt. Words can do all kinds of things to people over time. When you talk to your child and tell him he's stupid, believe me, he hears that. When you talk to a friend and say something terribly unkind, they're hurt. Words are very powerful. If they weren't powerful, we would not have the pamphlets and the books and so forth that we have today that has led to revolutions, has led to us having the Constitution that we have today. These are words, and these are words that are very, very important words. And so we need to look at the fact that words have an effect on everybody.
And don't label people with those words.
Yeah, well, labeling anybody, you know, you can label me as Dr. Duffy, you can label you as Pat. We can, you know, label Melinda as a medium. That's what that she does and who that she is.
But labeling people because you disagree with them politically, or labeling people because you disagree with their sexual orientation and those kinds of things.
There's everybody. But
Boy,
anyhow,
if only I knew this was so exciting, if only I knew what was coming up in the future.
Let's see, can you think about this? Because we've got lots of stuff coming up in the next few weeks. In fact, next week, we're going to be having those readings by Melinda. On the 24th, it's going to be a really fun show because we are going to be talking about the murder mystery of Jack the Ripper.
I interviewed him.
Yay. On the 31st, we've got a special guest, and we're not going to tell you who it is. Then on the 7th of February, we have Dr. Melanie Streenan. Now, she is amazing because she is the only individual that is authorized to teach the works of both Greg Braden and Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Those are big deal names.
Yeah, teaching their philosophy. She's the only one that is accredited to do that, so she's just amazing. Like us on Facebook, melindavailmedium.com. Facebook. And then Melinda's going to be in Los Angeles on February 23rd and 24th, and only a couple of appointments are left, so if you're going to be in that area, find out about it. And then in April, she's going to be in Grand Forks,
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Great.
I hope it warms up by then.
Isn't that wonderful
Yes,
that Melinda's agent got her booked
Yes.
into a winter engagement in Grand Forks, North Dakota?
Well, hopefully in
Polar
April.
bears need readings too.
Yes. So anyhow, and we've got some super changes coming up for you on our website starting next week, and I'm not going to tell you about those either because you'll have to find out.
So there's a special mystery guest and there's special mystery changes for the website
Yep,
and the mystery of Jack the Ripper.
right. Yes, we're going to find out. Hey, Jack, where are you? So anyhow, thank you for doing this with me. Thank you guys for
It was
listening.
fun.
I hope that you've had a good time. I hope that all is well with everybody. And for those of you that are out there, if you get onto the Dave Pratt Star World Wide Web starting February the 5th, you'll be able to see Duffy doing a new show called Life Happens. So Life Happens is about just that. It will be about everything that goes on in your life, and you can write in and call in and just say, I want to know about such and such.
You get that
And
on
we
the
will,
internet,
yes,
right?
I get that on the internet. And we will be talking a lot about sex, because that's what I talk about the most.
I'm never invited.
That's true. Yeah. I've talked to him about sex before. It hasn't helped. I'm sorry. So,
Bye.